When we're hired into manager roles, often we're brought in to help solve a particular issue on the team. Maybe it's a problem, maybe the company's trying to achieve something, and we need to get our heads around it. Now, sometimes the company is going to be very clear about what those problems are. Other times, the problems, and this is more likely the case, the problems are going to be far more complicated, far more nuanced than you're ready for. And how do we deal with that? Here are 5 different perspectives that you can take to help get your head around how to manage those problems and what you need to be thinking about. As a side note, just to get started, each of these 5 perspectives may apply to the problem you're trying to solve. Obviously, the problems are complicated and you're being brought in to solve them. So I want you to be thinking that you can apply these to different aspects of the problem, but start from the perspective of what is the overall thing you're trying to solve, and that gives you your starting position. The first perspective is the startup perspective. This is when your problem that you're trying to solve is completely new to you. You've never seen it before, your team's never seen it before, you may not have the right equipment, you may not have the right training, you may not even have the right people to help solve this problem. Whatever it is, it's completely new, no one's ever done this before. In this perspective, you need to be thinking creatively, you need to be thinking outside the box. So the first thing to help solve a startup problem with a startup perspective is first to get really clear on what the outcome is. Because the steps to solve it, you may not know what those are yet, but you need to know where you're going so you can start working that out. Second of all, you also need to be okay with mistakes being made, because your team, even you, are going to be trying things that may not work, that may not be getting you to that objective. You need to celebrate those mistakes because it gets you further forward. So be good with people trying, but not necessarily getting all the way. And then brainstorm ideas. Think outside of whatever you've done before, because that is not going to solve the problem that you have in front of you. Think outside the box, get inspiration from different places. This is the startup perspective. The next perspective is the turnaround perspective. This is a case where all your metrics are pointed in the wrong direction. The ship is sinking. Things are going badly and they need to be fixed. Otherwise, everyone's in serious trouble. In this perspective, in the turnaround perspective, your job is to turn things around, get things back on track. You need to do 2 things in this situation. You need to first identify what's actually broken. And you need to be really clear and honest with yourself. The team needs to be honest with itself. You need to set the egos aside to really look and say, this thing we're doing, it's not working. And once you're clear on that, then you can do part 2, which is fix the problem, whatever that happens to be. So the second perspective is the turnaround perspective. The next perspective is the accelerating your growth perspective. So in this case, you just want more and more and more. Whatever you're doing, you need to do it faster, you need to do more of it. There just has to be more things happening. In this particular perspective, whatever the problem you're dealing with, it's not a matter that things are broken. You need to just be more efficient with what you're doing. So to solve this, it's about identifying where the bottlenecks are. Where are things getting slowed down? Smooth out your processes. Smooth out those lines of communications. Sometimes you may look at providing your team with additional training. Maybe there's other equipment that you can introduce into place to allow them to do their job safer, faster, easier. But ultimately, the bottom line with the accelerating growth perspective is about efficiency and perfecting the system. You're not fixing anything that's broken. It's about perfecting what you've got. The fourth perspective is the realignment perspective. In this instance, it's not that your product isn't selling or whatever you're doing isn't working, but it's not working as well as you might like. So for example, you've got a good product, but customers aren't just buying it. In this case, it's not about things being broken or your processes needing to be made more efficient. It's about getting aligned with what the customer needs. Now, it could be a customer in a product sense, they're buying something. Your customer could also be an internal customer with another business unit. Whoever that happens to be, you need to get clearer on what they need. And this can be done simply by asking them. You could reach out to them, talk to them, conduct surveys, conduct focus groups. Basically, you want to get feedback on whatever your product is, whatever the service you're providing, making sure that it is what they need so that you can give them what they need. And then once you get that information, you can realign your work accordingly. And so everyone's moving in the right direction. So the realignment perspective is all about getting in touch with your customer and meeting the customer's needs. The fifth and final perspective is sustaining success. In this instance, the problem you have is that there is no problem. Things are going well. Everything is as it needs to be. And your job is to keep it that way. So when you're in the perspective of sustaining the successful team, first things you want to do, you want to acknowledge good work. Let your team know that they're doing a good job, thank them for their efforts, and make sure that they are still engaged with what they're doing. Provide them with developmental opportunities, making sure that you check in with them to see that they've got what they need in order to do the job correctly. And basically that's what you need to do. Keep your team members happy in this case. So if you have a situation where things are going well, you're sustaining the success, then keep your team happy. Was that helpful? Is there anything that you would do differently when it comes to solving problems? Let me know below. Also, if you like these kinds of leadership tips, then consider downloading my new manager's checklist. This includes 100 tips and action items, mindset changes that you can make to make sure that you have all the fundamental tools you need when starting a new team. And if you're a manager that's been in a position for a while, there may be some surprises in there for you too. In the meantime, my name is Matthew Devine. I'm a leadership coach based here in Toronto, Canada. And until we speak again, let's get to work.